With Black Ops 6 releasing soon, one of its iconic game modes will be returning, with some already mixed feelings about it, and that mode is Zombies. Zombies went from a side game mode Des played around with during the making of World at War and decided to just put it in the game as a bonus mode after the completion of the campaign. From an unknown side mode that's now telling the story of Dark Dimensions and Multiverse, just what exactly happened to the storytelling of COD Zombies? Well, let's embark on this journey.
Blue and X, go get a stack of rappers and play us back to back. Check the conclusion after, who got the masses locked. Open your hearts and let us walk throughout your mental fortress. Close down your chart soon as we spark, cause you consent to forfeit. Bring back original rap to what it's meant to be, and let that digital relax.
So to start this off, this isn't going to be some in-depth timeline lore breakdown video. There's plenty of videos on YouTube already detailing that. What I'm going to talk about is how the story, or better lack thereof, during its initial release was being told, and how the narrative of the team's vision began to change. See, I never played World at War Zombies, so I can't speak in depth on how the mechanics of the game mode work, but going on a storytelling narrative, I can speak on that from what I've gathered. So being led by Jimmy Zielinski, his team created this side story of you playing as four random Marines being constantly pursued by a never-ending horde of zombies, where your only means of survival is to board up the windows and walls that they came from, taking the points you acquired to purchase weapons that manifested from chalk drawings on the wall, as well as a mystery box that would give you a gun through a random roulette. Now, for some people with a certain sense can see something is up here narratively and begin to ask themselves questions like, why are there zombies, and how the mystery box and the wall weapons even possible? Who left these writings on the walls? Amongst other things like the power-up drops. Later on down the life cycle of World at War, there were 3 more DLCs released that gave us 3 more additional maps. By this time, the story was fully being developed by the team and the community was starting to pick up on how to understand it. Now you see, since this game is basically a never-ending game mode that ends when you make your final stand, they had to figure out how to tell this story so players can analyze it while having to worry about a horde coming after them. By using the environment of the map itself to tell the story hunters of the mode were starting to each come up with the question of, what is it I'm supposed to learn from this map? By having writings on the walls, destroyed structures, body parts, and even interactive radios, the community starts to piece together the story.
Stand up. Stand up! Good. Look at me. Over here. Good. Now walk forward.
Your punch is cold. Mine is
Further.
deadly.
Keep coming.
By the time Black Ops 1 arrived and the new trend of becoming a video game content creator on YouTube, we began to see a growth in the community that would take the time to piece together the story in a way so that the average player can understand. Having channels like Play the Game, Rad Austin 27, and Mr. Raffle Waffles, and so on, this was the time I was becoming interested in the story of zombies and was very intrigued with how they were able to tell this interesting story within a game mode that's so fast paced and leave you little time to rest between rounds before the next horde of more stronger zombies keep coming. See, Treyarch understood that if they're going to put a story in this mode, they should have a way that the community can explore it. So while using a feature in Zombies mode where depending on the round of the game, trying to use your grenade to blow up a zombie will result in them only losing their legs, the zombie will still keep crawling after you, trying to do whatever it can to get you. The community took notes of this and they figured, well, before we end the round, why not make a zombie a crawler so we can have time to look around, especially for playing co-op online with your friends. The community would use this tactic to search every inch of the map, inside and outside, as Treyarch will leave little hidden clues and Easter eggs outside of the map area as well, thus making weapons like a sniper rifle more important since you can use the scope to look further out or to look closer at any documents that may appear to be legible. The community was relentless, and that was something that just made me enjoy the mode even more, knowing all of these things were hidden around just waiting for you to find it alongside the pure fun of the mode on its own, just trying to see how far you can make it. Now, let me take this time to talk about the Jimmy era of storytelling for zombies. Starting from World at War, the first map, Nothing on Toten, gave us 4 silent Marine protagonists trying to survive this horde. But what we the player was able to see was the previously mentioned writings on the walls in the mystery box. For a game that's a World War II shooter, we never expected the franchise to dive into this realm, and being that you could only first access this game mode by completing the campaign, it took a life on its own through word of mouth by friends telling each other about this mysterious mode. and we didn't really have YouTube like that back in the day to showcase these modes. So the mode will explode, and Jimmy along with his team would have to figure out how to turn this random side mode into something, thus into Varrock. The Marines would now have voice lines giving life to the characters, but more so they would put in a very impactful clue to a deeper story. On some of the walls of the room, we get writings made from blood, and it leads us asking who wrote this and who they wrote it for, as we see multiple things being used from Illuminati codes and Bible verses. These were all tactics that were used to get us programmed to pay close attention to our surroundings to truly understand why we even in these locations to begin with. In Shino Numo, we got our 4 iconic characters whose story we pretty much follow throughout the rest of this 10-year journey. So now we get the inclusion of characters with a story behind them, as we will get their bios, and we will also get our first non-zombie character in the map, which would be the Hanging Man, who later the community will find out would be Peter, and we learned that through our very first radio placed in a zombie map.
Receiving this transmission, Peter. If you are not, then all is already lost. You must know by now that we failed to contain the asylum, and that we had to move the experiment here. Education.
The community would piece this together to come to this conclusion, but not only that, he was also missing an arm, which we would also recall a chopped off arm in Varrock, so we can assume the blood was writing was also probably done by him too. See, Jimmy really wanted you to be immersed in these maps when he's telling his story and pay attention to every detail, but Jimmy was also too cryptic to a fault, leaving things that to this day still have no explanation, or what I personally believe was retconned later on in the timeline. During the life cycle of Black Ops 2, we began to see multiple things occur. See, Jimmy starts to have a more grand way to tell his story, making the maps a lot larger, thus making the exploration for the story a bit more tedious, and the initial reception of the map transit wasn't too positive due to how the map was designed, with this thick fog covering up majority of the whole area, having to use a bus to travel to different arenas of the map that was constantly moving, so you would have to learn the hard way of trying to venture out to the next area on foot. See, Jimmy will also give us a change with how he was telling the story by giving us a whole new cast of 4 survivors and making the story more grounded and related to how the world was being affected on a larger scale compared to just being focused on one little group of survivors in the previous game. The community was becoming a bit disconnected with some of the maps during release, but still stuck around for the sake of the story. But halfway through the game, we got our first change. Enter Jason Blundell, who at the time mostly worked on the campaign portion of Call of Duty, as he has dabbled in some zombie stuff previously, but not to a grand extent. He was given the chance to design an entire map, which quickly became a fan favorite with Mob of the Dead. Jason used a different method to tell his story, bringing the campaign objective style to the mode. He made it more accessible to learn the map, as just by doing things that was at one point a simple task of finding the pack-a-punch, turned it into a story building journey in itself. The community starts to take to this storytelling a lot more than Jimmy's style, and also upon hearing that Jimmy would be leaving Treyarch after Black Ops 2, the transition to Jason's lead became something easy for the community to adjust to. So as I mentioned before, Jason was choosing a new formula to tell the zombie story by using a campaign style structure. For example, in Black Ops 2, we were able to pick up items in the game, especially with the new crafting system, but Jimmy made it a bit tedious, as you can only pick up one item at a time if you were playing solo, as Jason made an inventory system where you can now carry multiple things at once in the game. Jason made playing zombies much more user-friendly, and I felt that's where the storytelling began to take a back seat. Black Ops 3 was the game where we got the full Jason experience, and before the release of the game, the community was probably regretting the departure of Jimmy, as Jason starts to tell a whole new aspect of an already established story, and it felt we was going further away from the core of the mode zombies. Having these giant tentacle monsters and transformations, we weren't sure where we were going to go into this game, but then the game was finally released and we were able to understand the vision, and to this day, some people consider Shadow of Evil as the best zombie map. As the life cycle of the game progressed, that's when it started to hit for me. This wasn't the same game mode I used to love. Don't get me wrong, most of the maps Jason and his team created were very good in a fundamental way. It always provided you with a new and cool way to play the map, travel the map, and fight the horde, so you wouldn't get bored, but the storytelling for me began to feel empty. The game started to add cutscenes to tell the story, which wasn't something that was new, as Jason's first two maps, Mob of the Dead and Origins, had cinematic cutscenes, as well as 5 and Call of the Dead, which was made by Jimmy's team, but they were either in the beginning when you started the map or completing the Easter egg, but that would also end the game for completing the objective, so that defeated the purpose of an endless zombie defense mode. So upon completing the quest in Black Ops 3 and viewing the cutscene, the game will resume. It starts to feel like they held your hand too much on explaining the story. Now Jason is just as cryptic as Jimmy too, probably more annoyingly so, as Jason would do interviews and be cryptic about his answers to get people to keep looking.
I'm gonna say it anyway.
Yeah.
Did the bald man in the First Strike poster come into contact with a radioactive beacon, hence his baldness?
Pass.
Brock Rossman.
Pass.
Hesitation.
Which is fine, but I also like Jimmy's less vocal approach, as he normally didn't directly address the fans when speaking on secrets of the game. He would just randomly say something and leave us scratching our heads on what we should be looking at, and he really wanted to get us immersed into these maps. Also, everything you do in this game was a part of the Easter egg quest. It became less about just playing the game to see how far you can get, and it became more about hunting for this quest, as the community even started having live streams to become the first in the world to solve the quest and finding the steps, rather than breaking down what the hidden story was.
Perkaholic for everyone, dude. Holy shit!
That's how you do it, baby!
Oh, it is lit, boys! The beacon is lit!
Instead, the story was thrusted into your face. The mystique of the game was gone for me, so when Black Ops 4 rolled around, I checked out on continuing to play this game mode any further. After the release of Black Ops 4, Jason's team would wrap up the storyline of what most of us have been following for 10 years and what some would consider to be a lackluster finale. Jason would then depart from Treyarch, leaving the state of zombies in a weird space. Who would take control of the zombies game mode? What story can they tell? Cold War would then be released and a new team would take over the mode of zombies, and they decided to do something strange with the storyline. So, for some context of where we ended in Black Ops 4, the universe and timeline was basically erased and rebooted, as two main characters from the previous universe would go on to live in another. The universe they live in now is basically connected to the one that the campaign takes place in, putting things in a weird space of everything within Call of Duty is now connected to each other, as before Treyarch games existed within the Treyarch universe and the same with Infinity Ward. But now, Call of Duty has basically become one entity and with a shared universe, and Zombie is no different. So, long gone is the dark atmospheric story taking place in these abandoned claustrophobic facilities, and now zombies in story and gameplay began to look very empty, in some cases even removing iconic staples in the game such as a round based gameplay and making it an extraction based game within a Warzone style map. Most of the big name zombies YouTubers have long since either departed from zombies content or still tries to hold on to what could be, but as we have a new era of zombies, there's a new era of zombies fan and probably don't even know about the past storytelling of the older games, so I can't completely shut down the current state of zombies. To put it simply, it's just not for me. I would still poke my head in just to see where they're going with the story, as I would do with games like Assassin's Creed, because the story at one point did mean something to me. Being able to tell such a deep, mysterious narrative in a game mode that would normally not allow for you to be able to sit still long enough to even figure out that there was a story is still an incredible thing to me. And what I love most is how the community came together to solve the story, listening to the radios, solving ciphers and codes as if they was uncovering the world's hidden mystery. But there's still one channel I would like to highlight, and that's Jielinski. He had long since abandoned his channel by the time Black Ops 2 released, but he had made a zombie storyline breakdown that I still adore to this day. He tries to explain the story of the game while speaking about real life history and conspiracies to tie it into the game mode.
And a lot of people worshipped or revered this black sun emblem. But one of those groups was called the Vril Society. And the reason why I bring that up, of course, is because there's a chalkboard somewhere in this theater, and it's got a bunch of scribblings on it and pictures, and one of the words it says is Vril. And the Vril Society was actually made up of 3 smaller societies, a smaller Vril.
Of course, most of his explanation is now outdated, especially since Jason Blundell decided to officially release the Zombies timeline during Black Ops 3, which members of the community put together on the website Chronorium.com, so all the newcomer can use it to catch up on the story, but it's not the same if you weren't there during the actual release of the games. Like back when the zombies made a random groan that sounded like they said Sam, thus spawning our now prominent character Samantha Masters. Just all the questions and speculations throughout each map was just unmatched. I would also like to take this time to touch on something that I've only noticed Jielinski talk about this. I'm not sure if it's confirmed or it's just maybe something that the community probably subconsciously agreed to, but we just never talked about it, which is the Easter egg songs that's in the game, which could also be used as another form of storytelling. For the most part, we can look at each song as a representation of being told from the perspective from Samantha Max's. So going through songs such as Beauty of Annihilation, where she sings about basically her newfound power of being in control of the zombies and finding this chaotic beauty in it. As in this point in time in the storyline, she had just recently been, well, in our belief, killed, but she had joined the Ether and got control of the zombies. So this was a whole new thing for her. So we found this out in the Reese, which we hear the radio in the Reese of how she, well, we believe she was killed off in the storyline. So all around, there's multiple ways that you can dive into this story by finding the little Easter eggs around from doing the quest, the songs, any ciphers, any images, character quotes. Like you had to be immersed in this whole thing to fully unwrap this whole storytelling, and that's what just wraps it all up for me as a great big package of the storytelling. But with Black Ops 6, it appears like they're going to be taking another change on the format, and hopefully it's a change that will breathe new life into Zombies community so it won't feel split. As for me, I think I'm long past investing into this game mode myself, but I will still keep an eye out on the story once in a while to see how it's developing. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please be sure to share, rate it, comment, and also tell me what you like most about the zombie storytelling. This has been Digital Relaxation, and I'll see you all next video. Peace.